Today, I'm breaking down one of the most critical conversations about America's AI competition with China and what it means for national security. I'm going to be reacting to a clip from Mike Gallagher, Palantir's head of defense and former chairman of the House Select Committee on China. He had access to the most classified intelligence about China's capabilities, and now he's at Palantir implementing solutions. When the guy who used to chair the China Committee and now leads defense at Palantir speaks, I tend to listen. I'm going to cover 3 key areas Mike covers and their relevance to Palantir, but first, here's the clip of him speaking.
The US president has visited Gulf states recently. Now, these are countries where we know that countries like Russia and China have been trying to court. Now, during that visit, there were major announcements in terms of defense and in terms of AI. But do you think that the US is ahead in that race vis-a-vis a country like China?
I think we are narrowly ahead, but that should not be a cause for complacency. The amount of money and resources that China is investing in AI right now, really investing their top-level talent, and obviously they have benefited from their willingness to steal our intellectual property, to cheat on major international agreements. So they are catching up, which is why we really need an allied strategy for AI investment. And if we're not present in places like the Gulf, we create an opening for China to flood the zone with people, with resources. They're willing to throw a lot of money around. So I'm glad the president went to the Gulf. I'm glad he had major wins in terms of the size of these deals. We need to make sure that our allies are increasingly trending in the direction of the US and the free world and not Finlandizing in the direction of the Chinese Communist Party, because we know that if they dominate the commanding heights of critical technology like AI, quantum, synthetic biotech, they will use those technology to advance their repressive goals and their autocratic vision and their anti-American vision for the future.
Let's talk about the future of military technology, because we've just seen the eruption of conflict between Pakistan and India. And during that conflict, we saw, and perhaps we were offered, a glimpse of China's narrowing in terms of the gap in military air power with the US, although keeping in mind that there is the fog of war, there is contested claims about what has happened. But how concerned do you think Washington should be about the future here, particularly as it relates to the race in AI?
Well, I think we should be very concerned about a few particular things when it comes to any kinetic conflict with China over Taiwan, over the Philippines. One, every war game I've ever participated in, even if we're able to deny the Chinese their initial goals, we run dry on ammunition really quickly. So our ability to reconstitute stockpiles of critical munitions is very fragile, which leads to the second thing. In any long conflict, the only short conflict is a quick Chinese victory. So in any long conflict, we are then forced to surge men and materiel across the Pacific, which is vast, and also we'd be subject to cyber attack along the way. That's really the second lesson in my analysis as chairman of the Select Committee on China. It's not an over there problem. We have to assume the U.S. homeland would also be a target for a cyber attack, if not a kinetic attack. And there I just don't feel like we're moving with a sense of urgency. Again, we should take Xi Jinping seriously when he says he wants to take Taiwan by force if necessary. And anyone who casts doubt on that really isn't paying attention to what he's saying to internal CCP audiences or what we've seen in other parts of the world with other dictators like Vladimir Putin. The lesson of Ukraine is that if a dictator tells you they're going to do a thing, you should treat that very, very seriously. Treat it as if the fate of the free world hangs in the balance, because in this case, it very much does.
So like I said, this is Palantir's head of defense speaking. Mike went from chairing the House China Committee to leading defense strategy at Palantir. When he says we're only narrowly ahead in AI, he's explaining the exact strategic landscape Palantir operates in. His transition from Congress to Palantir shows that people who understand the China threat at the highest levels are actually betting on Palantir's approach here. Gallagher says we're narrowly ahead in AI. That narrow lead is exactly what Palantir is built to protect. With contracts like Maven Smart System and Titan with the US military, Palantir isn't just participating in the AI race. They're providing the critical infrastructure that maintains America's edge. Now, this matters because when Palantir's head of defense warns about a narrow lead, he's essentially telling us how critical these specific contracts are to national security. These aren't just revenue streams for Palantir, they're the actual systems keeping America ahead in the AI race, which Mike is warning about. So for investors and Palantir supporters, of which I am both, this validates that the company isn't just in the right market, they're literally building the tools which are going to determine whether we win or lose. The Gulf states deals that Mike is mentioning aren't just about oil anymore. They're about AI partnerships in regions where China and Russia are trying to court. Palantir's mission to support US and allied forces with AI-enabled technologies directly counters China's attempt to flood these regions with resources. Here's why this is huge for Palantir. Gallagher's point about not letting China flood the zone means Palantir's allied partnerships are actually critical for the geopolitical landscape. This positions Palantir not just as a tech company, but as one of America's primary weapons in the global AI influence war. If I were to hazard a guess, this probably means sustained government support and expanding international contracts for Palantir. Mike also highlighted vulnerabilities in ammunition stockpiles and cyber defense, especially regarding Taiwan. He's describing exactly what his Maven smart system addresses. Maven is Palantir's AI-powered battlefield intelligence platform that processes massive amounts of real-time data. These include satellite imagery, drone feeds, communication interceptions, and turns it all into actionable intelligence for commanders to use. This is now the money shot for Palantir. Mike Gallagher is literally describing the problems that Palantir products can solve. When he talks about running out of ammunition and cyber vulnerabilities, he's making the case for why Maven isn't just optional, really it's now essential. For anyone watching Palantir's growth, this tells us that Maven isn't just another contract, it's the type of mission-critical system that governments will pay whatever it takes to maintain and expand. Mike has basically just explained and given rationale for why Palantir's defense contracts are going to be very resilient and in high demand for the government for the foreseeable future. What I find really interesting here is Mike Gallagher could have gone anywhere after Congress, but he chose Palantir. That tells us everything about where real solutions are being built. This isn't just another executive hire. This is the former Chief China Committee chair saying this is where the technological battle will be won. This interview from Mike was basically explaining why Palantir exists. Gallagher's journey from congressional China oversight to Palantir defense strategy shows that people who understand this competition at the highest levels are betting on Palantir. His move from one of the most powerful positions in Congress to Palantir is the ultimate endorsement of their mission. When someone with his background chooses Palantir over all other options, that tells us where the real defense innovation is happening. Quick plug, I help businesses scale using YouTube. In the last 12 months, I've helped 3 hit $100,000 months. If you run a business and want to do the same, hit the link in the description to book a call. Cheers.